Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon X and Y analysis video. Today's video is all about the legendary Pokemon Zygarde, so let's get started by taking a look at this Pokemon's typing, ability, and stats. So to start things off, Zygarde is a Dragon Ground type Pokemon introduced in a Generation 6, and the third sort of secret legendary of the Pokemon X and Y games, and this one obviously is going to be representing the letter Z. But as far as the ability is concerned, this Pokemon only gets one ability in the form of Aura Break, which inverses the effects of Dark Aura and Fairy Aura, meaning that instead of increasing the power of Dark and Fairy moves, Aura Break actually makes it so that those abilities are actually decreasing the power of Dark and Fairy moves. Now this might sound cool because this Pokemon, I guess, is meant in a way to shut down the other two legendaries, similar to how Rayquaza is meant to shut down the weather abilities of Kyogre and Groudon, except the fact that Aura Break really doesn't do anything, even if it is weakening the power of those types of moves, because, first of all, Xerneas can still just one-shot this thing with a Moonblast since it's weak to Fairy types, and Yveltal can just use a Flying type move to take care of his Pokemon anyway. So virtually, this ability pretty much has no use and kind of sucks for this Pokemon, because it could have been really cool, or they could have just done the normal legendary thing and given it pressure. But either way, as far as this Pokemon's stats are concerned, it actually has some pretty awesome defenses with base 108 HP, 121 defense, and 95 special defense, meaning that this Pokemon is definitely capable of taking hits from both the special and physical side, and being able to wall a variety of different attackers, especially because its typing is also a really good defensive typing in my opinion, in that it is only weak to 3 types, which are Ice, Dragon, and Fairy. But as for its attacking stats, this Pokemon has a really nice base 100 physical attack, and a pretty okay base 81 special attack, which may possibly be usable on a future mixed set for this Pokemon, but as of right now, we don't really know where this Pokemon lies. We definitely know it's not going to be an Uber Poke, just because it isn't crazy overpowered like Xerneas and Yveltal are, so we're kind of assuming it's going to be OU or UU, somewhere around there, and potentially a mixed set could be very good to counter some Pokemon in either of those tiers. But if you are going to be running a fully offensive set, more often than not, you're going to be going with its physical attack. And then as for this Pokemon's speed, it has a base 95 speed set, which is pretty good overall. It's a little bit on the slow side when you compare it to other speedy Pokemon, but either way, this Pokemon is pretty fast and will definitely outspeed a ton of others that aren't mainly just running super fast speed investments and EVs. And this Pokemon also does have access to Dragon Dance, which can easily boost its speed as well as its physical attack to allow it to be a very powerful sweeper if you so desire to use that kind of set on this Pokemon. So for the first set that I have for you in this video, we are going to begin by giving Zygarde a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but lower its special attack, and then we're going to be going with the Aura Break ability. As for the EVs, we're going to put 252 into its physical attack to max that out, 4 into its special defense, and then 252 EVs into its speed to max that out as well. And for the item, we're either going to be going with a Choice Band to increase its physical attack by 1 stage while locking it into a move, a Choice Scarf to increase its speed by 1 stage while locking it into a move, a Life Orb to increase the damage of all of your attacks while also giving you the freedom to use all of them since you aren't going to be locked in anything, but having that 10% recoil, or an Expert Belt to increase the damage on all attacks that you are able to hit your opponent with for super effective damage. But as for the moves, the first one we're going to be going with on this set is going to be Outrage, which will be your main Dragon-type stab move to go for, and also the most powerful move on the set. But for some really great coverage with Outrage, we are going to be running our main Ground Stab type move on the set in the form of Earthquake. And if you are wondering why this isn't Land's Wrath, which is Zygarde's signature move, Land's Wrath is just a worse version of Earthquake, surprisingly enough. So we're just going to go with Earthquake here, and that'll give you some really fantastic coverage in combination with Outrage, being able to obviously cover the Steel types that Outrage is going to be resisted by, and also being able to hit the Fairy types neutrally for some really solid, really good damage with Earthquake. But for some coverage along with your stab, we are either going to run Stone Edge or Crunch in this move slot to give you some different types of coverage. It really depends on what you expect Zygarde to be up against more often than not. You just keep in mind though that the Earthquake Stone Edge combination is fairly unresisted in itself, and pairing that with Outrage gives you a very fantastic combination of moves that should be able to hit the majority of Pokemon in the game for super effective or at least neutral damage. But going with Crunch can obviously give you some really good type coverage against many Ghost type Pokemon as well as Psychic type Pokemon that Crunch would obviously be hitting for super effective damage. But for the last move on this set, we are going to be going with Extreme Speed, which is an amazing move that this Pokemon learns since it does have +2 priority, meaning that it will outspeed typical priority moves and also be very powerful when used in combination with either the Life Orb or Choice Band, but also can be very beneficial on the Choice Scarf set anyway, because if we're up against something else with priority, Extreme Speed will go first, provided your opponent also isn't going for like Extreme Speed or Fake Out or something like that has the same priority or increased priority. But overall, this move selection for Zygarde on this particular set gives it some really great coverage all around and also some really useful priority. Now there is another way to run this set, and it's going to be a more bulky variant, so we're going to start this set off as we switch over the slide right now with an Adamant Nature to increase its physical attack but lower its special attack, and then we're going to change up the EVs a bit to give us 208 HP, 252 physical attack, and then 48 speed EVs to give us enough speed to outspeed Pokemon of base 100 speed or lower that haven't obviously put in any speed investment. And for the item, we are also going to take out the Choice Scarf item since we're not running any extensive speed on this set, and add in Leftovers as a possible option if you would like to be able to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn, since this is a bit of a bulkier set and it will be able to take attacks a lot better than just a fully offensive one you just saw. But as for the moves, we're going with the same things this time, and actually you're going to be a little bit more powerful because of the Adamant Nature, so that is something to keep in mind, making your Extreme Speeds even more of a deadly priority move, and all of your other attacks being able to do significantly more damage as well. But overall, this is just the bulkier version of the previous set and EV spread that you saw before, and works just as well for different reasons, and allows Zygarde to take hits while it is able to dish out a ton of damage. Up next, I have the first of 2 boosting sets that I'm going to show you in this video for Zygarde. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but lower its special attack, or an Adamant Nature to increase its physical attack but lower its special attack. And for the ability, we're going to be going with Aura Break, as always. But for the EVs, we are going to be running the same EV spread as the first set on this video, with 252 physical attack EVs, 4 special defense EVs, and 252 speed EVs to give you your max physical attack and speed possible. And as for the item, we can either go with a Life Orb to increase the damage of all of our attacks, but having that 10% recoil, a Yachi Berry to decrease the super effective damage of an Ice-type attack directed at this Pokemon, specifically a priority Ice-type move that would be coming mostly in the form of Ice Shard, or we can go with Leftovers to allow this Pokemon to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn to give it some more survivability. But as for its moves, the first one we're going to be going with on this set is going to be Dragon Dance, which is a really great boosting move, one of the best in the game in my opinion, as it does simultaneously boost your physical attack and your speed by 1 stage, which will effectively turn Zygarde into an incredibly powerful and speedy attacker. But to go along with our boosted attack and speed, we are going to be making use of both Outrage and Earthquake as our stab moves of the set. Obviously Outrage for our Dragon Stab and Earthquake for our Ground type stab, and overall this will just give you some really solid coverage to make use of. But along with that, we have the option of also running one other coverage move on the set, which we can use in the form of Stone Edge, Crunch, or Extreme Speed. And it might seem a little bit redundant to run Extreme Speed on a set that is also boosting its speed, but again, because there are plenty of other priority users in the game that might want to try and take this Pokemon out with priority, Extreme Speed will go before all of them and be able to simultaneously take them out before you are able to actually take any damage from their priority, which is something to keep in mind. But if you want some really good coverage overall, Stone Edge and Crunch are definitely the options to go with. As for the second boosting set, we're going to start this one off by giving Zygarde a Careful Nature to increase its special defense and lower its special attack, and then going with the Aura Break ability. As for the EVs, this time we're going to be maxing Zygarde's HP with 252 EVs into that, put 4 into its physical attack, and then max its special defense with 252 EVs into that. And for the item, we're going to be going with Leftovers to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn. Now, because this is a bit more of a bulkier boosting set, we are going to be going with Coil as our boosting move on this set, which will be simultaneously boosting our physical attack, our physical defense, and our accuracy by 1 stage every time we go with this move. Now, because we are so specially bulky, and because Zygarde has some really great defenses all around, this set will be able to take hits extremely well, while also being able to dish out a ton of damage to our opponents, and obviously with Coil boosting our physical defense, we will be increasingly able to take physical hits on this set. But for our main attacking move on the set, we are going to be going with Earthquake to have a really strong ground-type stab move for Zygarde to go for, and as far as the Dragon-type stab is concerned on this set, we are actually going to be going with Dragon Tail instead of Outrage, as this Pokemon really isn't investing into its speed at all on this set, and because we don't really want to be locked into a move on this set if we are slower than our opponent, because they could easily just bring in something faster that might resist the Outrage and dispatch of Zygarde very easily. So Dragon Tail will definitely be the Dragon-type move of choice for this Pokemon, and also work very well in combination with entry hazards, as you'll be able to shuffle around your opponent's team and rack up some residual damage every time you switch something else in. But as for the last move on this set, there are actually 4 possible options, and the first one that I want to talk about is going to be Substitute, which works amazingly for this particular Zygarde, since you will be boosting your defenses and be able to take hits extremely well. Now obviously a Substitute will get you behind a protective barrier to shield you from attacks and statuses, but also the important thing to make note of is that Zygarde has a very high HP stat, meaning that Substitute cannot be broken by a move such as Seismic Toss or Nightshade, as you will have a Substitute that is based off of an HP number greater than 100. So overall, if you were to run Substitute on the set, you will be very difficult to take down, as your opponent will have to deal with breaking the Substitute before they're able to do any damage to you, and because we have such great defenses, you probably won't have your Substitutes broken very easily unless by a super effective move. But for the other options that you can run with, Extreme Speed is a very great option since we aren't running any speed on this set, so this will give you a very fast priority move to make use of with your boosted physical attack. And then we can also go with Stone Edge and Crunch for coverage as well. So this set, in comparison to the previous one, is a lot more bulky and definitely meant to take hits a lot better, and still is very effective even though we aren't boosting our speed, since we are going to be increasing our physical attack to be able to do a ton of damage to any opponent that comes in contact with this Zygarde. Up next, I have a physically defensive set for Zygarde to run that seeks to make use of its really great physical defense and HP stats. So we're going to start this one off by giving it an Impish Nature to increase its physical defense and lower its special attack, and then going with the Aura Break ability. As for the EVs, we're going to put 252 into its HP to max that out, 4 into its physical attack, and then 252 EVs into its defense to max that out as well, to make Zygarde as physically bulky as it can possibly be. And as for the item, we're going to be going with Leftovers to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn, or a Rocky Helmet to allow Zygarde to damage any opponents that attack it with a contact move, which more often than not are physical attacks except for Grass Knot, and since we are so physically bulky on this set, this can be a really great way to allow us to do some residual damage to our opponents while they are attempting to deal with Zygarde. But for the moves, the first 2 that we're going to be using on the set are going to be our dual stab in the form of Earthquake and Dragon Tail, and then for the last 2 moves, we have quite a few options to run. Haze is a particularly great move for pretty much shutting down any Pokemon that is trying to set up on Zygarde, as it does nullify any stat boosts and also could help Zygarde defensively, because it will make it so that Zygarde's defenses, if they were dropped by a secondary effect of a move, to be completely nullified as well, allowing it to basically wall attacks as well as it normally would. And if you're thinking that this is a little bit redundant with Dragon Tail because you can just phase things out, Haze works through substitutes, whereas Dragon Tail does not, and Haze also does not have negative priority, meaning that if Zygarde is faster than the opponent setting up, it will be able to haze it before it has to take a big hit, whereas the Dragon Tail, since it has negative priority, you will have to take the hit before you can phase it out. So Haze is a lot better in terms of dealing with that than Dragon Tail is, so don't think of it as being redundant at all. But we can also go with Protect as the 3rd move on the set, to be mainly used in combination with the 4th move of Toxic to allow you to easily Toxic Stall many opponents for some really great residual damage. Or we could go with Rest and Sleep Talk to allow Zygarde to keep its HP up throughout battle and completely nullify any statuses this Pokemon has received, which is really great because this Pokemon really doesn't have a reliable way to recover health aside from leftovers, which is why I also think running the Rocky Helmet with the Rest Sleep Talk combination is really good for Zygarde. And Sleep Talk, if you do Sleep Talk Dragon Tail, completely nullifies the negative priority of Dragon Tail. But if you also want another move on the set to potentially status an opponent aside from Toxic, you can also go with Glare, which is a really great way to paralyze opponents and cripple them for a very long time, as as this will obviously make it so that they potentially might not attack, and also significantly lower their speed, allowing Zygarde to easily handle the Pokemon if it is able to, or another Pokemon on your team to easily take it out after they have been paralyzed. And lastly, I have a mixed defensive set for Zygarde to run. So we're going to start this one off by giving it an Impish Nature to increase its physical defense and lower its special attack, and then we're going to be going with the Aura Break ability. As for the EVs, we're going to put 204 into its HP to give it a pretty significant investment into that stat, and then we're going to put 128 EVs into its physical attack to allow Zygarde to hit just a bit harder, and put 128 EVs into its physical defense to increase that stat quite a bit, along with 48 EVs into its speed to make Zygarde a bit faster and able to outspeed Pokemon of base 100 speed that typically will not be investing in speed. And for the item, we are going to be going with an Assault Vest to increase Zygarde's special bulk, as the Assault Vest will increase your special defense by 1 stage, but also forces you to use only attacking moves. However, for this Pokemon, it has some really great attacking moves to be made use of, along with the Assault Vest boosting its defenses. And because its defenses are so good just naturally, we can also afford to drop or take away some of the normal defense investment and put it into your physical attack to allow you to do some more damage with your moves. But as far as those moves are concerned, we are going to be going first with Extreme Speed to give Zygarde a very useful priority move to make use of, and then we're going to be going with our Dual Stab in the form of Earthquake and Dragon Tail obviously being very useful along with the Assault Vest, because we have the increased defense and also some increased utility in the fact that we can potentially shuffle out an opponent if they are either setting up on Zygarde or if you want to get some residual damage through entry hazards. But for the last move on this set, we could go with a coverage move in the form of Stone Edge or Crunch to allow Zygarde to hit a bunch of things for super effective damage, or we could also feasibly run Bulldoze on the set to drop the speed of an opponent, as this will allow Zygarde to potentially then outspeed it after its speed has been lowered, or another member of her team to outspeed the Pokemon whose speed has been lowered, and potentially take it out after their speed has been dropped. So that's another really good utility move to use on the set. It's a little uncommon, and it might seem a little bit redundant since we also have Earthquake as our ground type move, but the utility behind lowering your opponent's speed can come in handy and allow you to deal with a threat that might be scarfed. You bulldoze it, you bring something else in that would normally outspeed it if it wasn't scarfed, and then take it out. But if you want to go for coverage overall, Stone Edge and Crunch are definitely the moves to go with. But anyways, everybody, that is it for this video. So I wanted to thank you all for watching. Feel free to follow me on Twitch and on Twitter, and also bookmark the database in the description that will have all of these Zygarde sets, as well as the sets for every single 6th Gen Pokemon I've done the analysis video on, which at this point is every single one. So I am officially done with this analysis series, which is pretty exciting. But also, feel free to join the Zat at zat.com/Pokegrounds, which will allow you to find an easy group of people to either trade, battle with, or maybe get some friend safaris to find some interesting Pokemon, all that good stuff. That is definitely a good place to go to get in contact with a bunch of other people. But anyways, everybody, as I've said, that is it for this video, and that is it for this analysis series. So as always, everybody, thank you for watching, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.